Alright guys, welcome back to the soapbox. I did a take just before this one I was not happy with. I was really pepped up more than usual. I wasn't composing very well and I wasn't keeping my head because this subject really pisses me off. Okay, so I'm going to try and keep it cool in this one, and we're going to try and get you something that you can understand with some coherency. But what we're going to talk about today is in Utah. The other day they beat a retarded person to death in a closet. It was a foster sister, stepsister, who was given guardianship by the mother when she died of cancer a couple of years ago. So how long this has been going on, it's probably been a couple of years. Basically she was left with what would be her sister in her mind. She was tied up in a closet using zip ties and a rail that they'd mounted into the closet, and they beat her to death. They beat her multiple times, and they killed her. This is a retarded person. If you look at the federally correct term, this person was retarded. She was not able to defend herself, and they tied her into a closet. They put a motion sensor alarm in the closet, so if she tried to get out of the closet, it would alarm them, and they'd probably beat her. But they beat her to death. This wasn't an accident. I don't think that we can just kind of let this one slide. I'm afraid that our justice system is sometimes too lenient towards criminals like this. I see us paroling them after a year, 2 years, 5 years because of our overcrowded jail system, and I think that's wrong. This girl was retarded. She couldn't take care of herself, and the person whose care she was left in beat her to death. Now there's lots of different reasons they say this happened. Stress. They were just after her checks, her disability checks. I think that they need to really consider the heinousness of this crime and come up with an equally heinous treatment. I don't think the treatment should be nice. I don't think it should be life in prison, because life in prison obviously can be really cushiony. Everybody knows that, you know, it's 3 square meals a day. No big deal. Okay, so life in prison I don't think is the answer. I don't think the death penalty should be off the table at all. I don't think that that's reasonable. In fact, I think that should be the only thing on the table for a prosecutor right now, because these people beat a retarded person to death. Now there are a couple of spin-offs that I go from this, and I'm going to ask you guys my question right now, because this is going to be a really short vlog today, because it really gets me going, and I'm trying to keep my head here. So I'm going to do a really short vlog, but I want to ask you guys a question. These people kept this woman, this girl, they kept her because of her disability checks. Now, I understand the government needs to give disability checks to these people to help them live. And I'm okay with putting my hard-earned tax dollars into that person's life. That is fantastic. That is one of the things that I'm very happy to pay out for. I've worked with the disabled community for years. I spent 5 or 6 years in a school system, and I understand that these people can be stressful. I understand that they don't always think the way you do, which is something that irritates people or stresses them out. But I don't think it's beyond us to go, I'm all here. I'm competent. I can say, this is the voice of reason, and I'm going to use it. They always can't. This wasn't an accident. Okay? It wasn't like she slapped her. It wasn't like they accidentally, you know, got into an argument and smacked around a little bit in a tussle and a fight with them. This is, we tied them to a bar, which they say is like a crucifix, in the closet, and beat her to death. Now, that's pretty heinous. That takes a really terrible person. We don't want to let that person out in the streets anytime soon, so I think that I'd never like to see that person again, personally. Okay? But my question of the day is going to be, where do you guys think the government was on this one? And I know what you're thinking, but we're doling out checks to these people. Isn't there somebody who's supposed to go into these places and say, yeah, she's taken care of. The money that we're giving is going towards her. It's not going towards drug habits, alcoholism, any of those things. It's going towards helping this special needs disabled person take care of themselves, get taken care of, get provided whatever medications or special needs that they have. But instead, they're tied up into a closet, tied to a bar that was probably paid for by the disability money, and nobody came into this house and said, something's wrong here. This special needs person is afraid of who she's with. Okay? And it's very obvious who they're afraid of and who they're not. And somebody beating the crap out of you makes you scared. This wasn't an accident. Is the government just handing out money and not really keeping track of that at all? Why is this person who should have been checking up on how these funds were being used, why is that person not being brought up? Why they're not saying, didn't you go into this house? Didn't you check on this person? Didn't you see how they were spending the money? Did you ask for a paper trail of receipts? Anything? No, they didn't. Because if they did, several months ago this would have been caught, taken care of, and we'd have been in a whole different story today. So, this is Aaron. I've been on my soapbox, and I hope you guys feel for this one, because this is somebody who's like a child. They've got a child in an adult body, and they've been beaten to death. This wasn't an accident. So it's just like if you have a child, somebody walking in, tying it up in the closet, and just beating him or her to death. And that's how you guys should feel about it, is they're beating somebody who's the same as a child to death.